The rain battered the roof like it was trying to confess something. I stood at the kitchen window, watching my sister Emily's car vanish into the storm, her taillights swallowed by the gray blur of our small Oregon town. Then I heard the creak of the floorboard behind me, and my heart stopped. I turned, and there was Ethan, my sister's boyfriend, leaning against the doorway. His dark hair was damp from the rain, clinging to his forehead, and his green eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made the air feel too thick to breathe. "She's gone for the weekend," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, like he was testing the words. "It's just us now, Sam." I should have known then that everything was about to change. Ethan wasn't just the charming guy who'd swept Emily off her feet 6 months ago. He was the guy who'd been stealing glances at me when he thought no one noticed. The guy whose laugh made my chest ache in ways I couldn't explain. But he was hers. My sister's. And I'd spent months burying whatever this was, whatever we were, because that's what you do when you're the quiet, responsible brother who's never supposed to want what he can't have. The kitchen clock ticked too loudly. Ethan stepped closer, his boots leaving wet prints on the hardwood. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asked, his voice cracking just enough to betray the weight he was carrying. I wanted to deny it, to tell him to leave, to pretend I hadn't memorized the way his hands moved when he talked, or how his smile felt like a secret meant just for me. But I couldn't lie. Not anymore. "I can't do this to her," I said, my voice barely holding together. "She's my sister." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't back away. "And what about you, Sam? What about what you want?" His words hit like a punch, because I'd never let myself ask that question. Not out loud. Not in the 18 years I'd spent growing up in this sleepy coastal town, where being gay was something you whispered about, but never lived openly. Not when I'd watched Emily shine as the golden child, the one who always knew who she was, while I hid behind my sketchbooks in silence. He was close now, close enough that I could smell the rain on his jacket, feel the warmth radiating from him. My hands shook as I gripped the counter behind me, trying to anchor myself to something solid, something safe. But Ethan wasn't safe. He was a storm of his own, and I was already caught in it. "I don't know what I want," I lied, my eyes dropping to the floor. But I did know. I'd known since the first time he'd stayed over, when we'd sat up late talking about music and dreams, and his knee had brushed mine under the table, sending a jolt through me I couldn't ignore. I'd known every time he'd asked me about my art, actually listened, like he saw the parts of me I kept hidden from everyone else. "Then let me help you figure it out," he said, and before I could stop him, his hand was on my arm, gentle but firm, pulling me toward him. The world narrowed to the space between us, to the way his breath hitched, to the way my heart was screaming at me to close the distance. But Emily's face flashed in my mind, her laugh, her trust, her everything, and I yanked myself back. "No," I said, the word sharp enough to cut. "This is wrong." Ethan's face fell, but he didn't argue. He just stood there, rain dripping from his hair, looking like he was carrying the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and for a moment, I believed him. But then he turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen with nothing but the rain and the guilt clawing at my chest. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my desk, sketching furiously, trying to pour the chaos inside me onto paper. Faces. Hands. Eyes. Ethan's eyes stared back at me from the pages, accusing and pleading all at once. By morning, the storm had passed, but I felt like I was still drowning. I didn't know how to face him, how to face Emily when she came back, how to face myself. The next day, Ethan was back, acting like nothing had happened. He helped me fix the leaky sink, made coffee, talked about the Seahawks game like we were just two guys hanging out. But every time our eyes met, there was a spark, a silent question hanging in the air. What now? I wanted to hate him for making me feel this way, for cracking open the part of me I'd kept locked away. But I couldn't, because hating him would mean hating the truth about myself, and I wasn't ready for that. By Sunday, when Emily's car pulled into the driveway, I thought I'd buried it all again. I greeted her with a smile, helped carry her bags, laughed at her stories about her weekend in Portland. But Ethan was quieter than usual, his eyes flickering to me when he thought she wasn't looking. And I knew, deep down, that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, after Emily went to bed, I found Ethan on the porch, staring at the stars. "We need to talk," he said, not looking at me. My stomach twisted, but I nodded. Because whatever line he'd crossed, I'd been right there with him, teetering on the edge of something I couldn't unfeel. The air on the porch was sharp with the scent of pine and salt from the nearby ocean. Ethan sat on the steps, his silhouette framed against the night sky, and I stood frozen by the door, unsure if I wanted to run toward him or away. His words hung between us. "We need to talk." They were simple, but they carried the weight of everything we hadn't said. I sat down a step above him, keeping distance, trying to hold onto the fraying threads of my self-control. "What's there to talk about?" I asked, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. "You're with Emily. That's the deal." He turned to me, his face half lit by the porch light, and I saw the struggle in his eyes, something raw, something that mirrored the storm inside me. "You think I planned this?" he said, his voice low but fierce. "You think I wanted to feel this way about you? I came here for her, Sam. But then I met you." And he trailed off, running a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You're not just her brother. You're you." His words hit like a wave, pulling me under. I wanted to yell at him, to tell him to stop making this harder. But my throat tightened with the truth I'd been dodging for months. I wasn't just Emily's brother, the quiet artist who stayed out of the way. I was a guy who'd spent years hiding who he was, afraid of what it meant to want someone like Ethan. And now, here he was, saying things that made my carefully built walls crumble. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I've never let myself." I couldn't finish. The words felt too big, too dangerous. Growing up in Coos Bay, I'd seen what happened to kids who were different. Whispers in the halls, cold shoulders at church, parents who looked the other way. I'd learned to keep my head down, to draw my feelings instead of living them. Ethan shifted closer, his knee brushing mine, and I didn't pull away this time. "I'm scared too," he said. "I've never felt like this about a guy before. But when I'm around you, it's like I can't think straight. Like I'm finally seeing something I was blind to my whole life." His hand hovered near mine, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of it. "Tell me you don't feel it, Sam. Tell me." and I'll walk away. I opened my mouth to say it, to lie and shut this down before it destroyed everything. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I looked at him and saw the vulnerability he was offering, the risk he was taking. And for the first time, I wondered if I could take that risk too. The next few days were a blur of stolen glances and unspoken tension. Emily was back, filling the house with her laughter and energy, oblivious to the undercurrent between Ethan and me. We were careful, too careful, keeping our conversations short and our distance wide. But every moment alone felt like a tightrope walk. A brush of hands while passing dishes at dinner. A shared look when Emily wasn't watching. Each one chipped away at my resolve. One afternoon, while Emily was at work, Ethan found me in the garage, where I was sorting through old art supplies. "You're good at hiding," he said, leaning against the workbench, his voice teasing but soft. "But you can't hide from this forever." I set down a box of charcoals, my hands shaking. "I'm not hiding," I said, but it sounded weak even to me. "I'm trying to do the right thing." "And what's the right thing, Sam?" he asked, stepping closer. "Pretending you're someone you're not. Letting her have a version of me that's not even real anymore." His voice was quiet, but it carried a desperation that made my chest ache. "I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying it's true." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the air between us was electric, pulling me toward him. Before I could stop myself, I reached out, my fingers grazing his wrist. It was the smallest touch, but it felt like a spark igniting a fire. His eyes widened, and for a moment, we just stood there, caught in the gravity of what we'd done. Then the garage door rattled open, and we sprang apart. Emily's voice called out, "Sam, you in there?" My heart pounded as I shouted back, "Yeah, just organizing." Ethan busied himself with a random box. His face flushed, and I wondered if she'd heard the guilt in my voice. That night, I lay awake, replaying the moment in the garage. The feel of his skin under my fingers. The way his eyes had held mine, like he was seeing straight through to the parts of me I'd never shown anyone. I knew I was standing at a crossroads, and every choice felt like a betrayal of Emily, of myself, of the life I'd been too afraid to live. By the end of the week, I couldn't take it anymore. I found Ethan in the backyard, tossing a ball for our old dog. "Max, we can't keep doing this," I said, my voice shaking. "Sneaking around, pretending it's nothing. It's killing me." He dropped the ball, turning to face me. "Then what do we do, Sam?" he asked, his voice raw. "Because I can't pretend either. Not anymore." I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But as I looked at him, standing there with the late afternoon sun catching the edges of his hair, I knew one thing for sure: whatever happened next, there was no going back. The backyard was quiet except for the distant crash of waves against the cliffs. Ethan stood there, waiting for an answer I didn't have, his eyes searching mine like he could find it if he looked hard enough. I wanted to tell him to leave, to go back to Emily and let me bury this ache. But my feet wouldn't move, and my heart wouldn't let me lie. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, my voice cracking under the weight of it all. "But I know I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." The words felt like a confession, like I was stepping off a cliff with no idea what was below. Ethan's face softened, and for a moment, I thought he might reach for me again. But he didn't. He just nodded, like he understood the war raging inside me. That night, Emily noticed something was off. We were eating dinner, her famous lasagna. The one she made when she wanted to feel like home was still home. "You're quiet, Sam," she said, tilting her head, her brown eyes narrowing with concern. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile, my fork hovering over my plate. "Just tired," I lied, avoiding Ethan's gaze across the table. But I could feel him, like a current running under my skin, pulling me toward him even as I tried to anchor myself to my sister's voice. Her trust, her love. After dinner, Ethan offered to do the dishes, and I volunteered to help, desperate for a moment alone with him, even if it was just scrubbing plates. The kitchen was too small, the air too thick. Our hands brushed as I passed him a glass, and I froze, my breath catching. "Careful," he murmured, but his eyes said something else entirely, something that made my pulse race. "We can't," I whispered, glancing toward the living room where Emily was scrolling through her phone. "Not here. Not like this." "Then when?" he asked, his voice low, urgent. "Because I'm not sure how much longer I can act like this isn't real." His words were a mirror, reflecting my own fear, my own longing. I didn't answer, just turned back to the sink, scrubbing harder than necessary, trying to wash away the truth. The next day, I drove to the cliffs, the place where I went when the world felt too heavy. I sat on the edge, sketching the ocean, letting the wind carry away the noise in my head. But even there, I couldn't escape Ethan. I drew his face without meaning, the curve of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. I tore the page out, crumpled it, and threw it into the sea. But it didn't make the feeling go away. When I got home, Ethan was waiting in the driveway, leaning against his truck. "You didn't tell me you were leaving," he said, his tone light, but his eyes serious. I was worried. "I needed space," I said, shutting the car door harder than I meant to. "This, whatever this is, it's messing with my head." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "It's messing with mine too. But I'm not running from it. Sam, I'm not running from you." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was making everything worse. But the way he said my name like it was something precious stopped me cold. Before I could respond, Emily's car pulled up, and we both stepped back. The moment shattered. She bounded out, oblivious, talking about some work drama, and I forced myself to nod along, my heart pounding with the weight of what we weren't saying. That evening, Ethan found me in my room, sketching again. He didn't knock, just slipped inside and closed the door. "We need to figure this out," he said, his voice steady but laced with something desperate. "I can't keep pretending I'm just here for her." I set my pencil down, my hand shaking. "And what happens if we don't pretend? You think we can just, what? Break her heart? Tell her the truth and expect her to be okay with it?" My voice rose, and I hated how scared I sounded. How small. Ethan sat on the edge of my bed, his head in his hands. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know I'm falling for you, Sam. And I think you're falling for me too." The words hung there, heavy and undeniable. I wanted to deny them, to push him away. But my body betrayed me, leaning toward him like he was the only thing keeping me grounded. This will ruin everything, I whispered. Maybe, he said, looking up at me. Or maybe it's the only way we both get to be honest. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly we were kissing. His hands cupping my face, my fingers tangling in his hair. It was desperate, reckless, like we were trying to pour everything we couldn't say into that one moment. But then I heard the floor creak outside my door, and I pulled back, my heart hammering. Sam. Emily's voice called softly. You okay in there? I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Ethan's eyes were wide, his lips still parted. And for a moment, I thought we were caught. Yeah, I called back, my voice shaking. Just drawing. She didn't open the door. Thank God. But her footsteps lingered before fading away. Ethan let out a shaky breath, and I pressed my forehead against his, trying to steady myself. We can't do this again, I said. But even as I said it, I knew I didn't mean it. The days after that kiss were a tightrope stretched over a chasm. Every moment with Ethan felt like a stolen breath. Every glance a risk we couldn't stop taking. But Emily was there, her presence a constant reminder of the line we'd crossed. And the guilt was eating me alive. I started avoiding Ethan, sticking to my room or taking long walks along the beach, hoping the ocean's roar would drown out the chaos in my head. But he was relentless, finding ways to pull me back, helping with chores, asking about my art, sitting too close when we watched movies with Emily. Each time, I felt the pull, the magnetic force of him, and I hated how much I wanted to give in. One evening, Emily dragged us to a local diner, insisting we needed a night out. The place was packed, neon lights buzzing, the air thick with the smell of burgers and fries. We slid into a booth, Emily between us, her chatter filling the space. But under the table, Ethan's knee brushed mine, deliberate and slow, and my breath hitched. I shot him a look, but he just smirked, his eyes daring me to react. Sam, you're so quiet lately, Emily said, snapping me back to reality. She reached for my hand, her smile warm but searching. What's going on with you? I pulled my hand back, pretending to adjust my napkin. Just stressed, I mumbled, hating the lie. Ethan's gaze burned into me, but he stayed silent, sipping his soda like nothing was wrong. Later, as we walked back to the car, Emily ran ahead to grab her jacket from the diner, leaving Ethan and me alone on the sidewalk. The streetlights cast long shadows, and the air was cool, heavy with the promise of rain. You can't keep running, Ethan said, his voice low, urgent. This isn't going away. I'm not running, I snapped, but my voice shook. I'm trying to keep this family together. You think I want to hurt her? He stepped closer, his eyes fierce. And what about you, Sam? Don't you deserve to be happy? His words were a knife, cutting through the excuses I'd been hiding behind. I wanted to shove him away, to tell him to stop. But my hands reached for him instead, gripping his jacket like it was the only thing keeping me upright. We didn't kiss, but we might as well have. The space between us was alive, electric, And I knew Emily could turn the corner any second. We're going to destroy her, I whispered, my voice breaking. Then we tell her, Ethan said, his voice steady but soft. We tell her the truth, and we deal with the fallout. Together. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You think it's that easy? You think she'll just smile and say, go for it? I shook my head, stepping back. You don't know her like I do. Before he could respond, Emily's voice cut through the night. You guys coming? She called, jogging toward us, her smile oblivious to the storm brewing. I forced a nod, my heart pounding, and followed her to the car, Ethan's words echoing in my head. The next day, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to the community center, where I sometimes volunteered, hoping to lose myself in helping others. But even there, surrounded by kids painting murals and old folks playing chess, I couldn't escape the truth. I was falling for Ethan, and every moment I spent denying it was a moment I was lying to myself. When I got home, Ethan was in the living room, reading one of my sketchbooks. My stomach dropped. He had never seen my private drawings, the ones where I'd poured out my confusion, my longing, my fear. You didn't tell me you were this good, he said, holding up a sketch of him, his face rendered in sharp lines and soft shadows. This is how you see me. I snatched the book from him, my face burning. You shouldn't be looking at that, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. He stood, closing the distance between us, and I didn't back away this time. I see you too, Sam, he said, his voice low, earnest. Not just Emily's brother. Not just the guy who hides. I see you. His hand brushed my cheek, and I leaned into it, my resolve crumbling. We kissed again, slower this time, like we were trying to memorize each other, like we knew it might be the last time. But then the front door slammed open, and Emily's voice rang out. Sam. Ethan. We sprang apart, my heart in my throat. But she was already in the room, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. What's going on? She asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Ethan stepped forward, his face pale but determined. Emily, we need to talk, he said, and I felt the ground shift beneath me, knowing nothing would ever be the same. Emily's eyes darted between us, her confusion hardening into something sharper. The living room felt too small, the air too thick, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Ethan's word sway need to talk hung like a guillotine, and I wanted to run, to disappear, but my feet were rooted to the floor. Talk about what? Emily asked, her voice tight, her arms crossing over her chest. She looked at Ethan, then at me, and I saw the moment she started to piece it together, the flush on my face, the way Ethan stood too close, the sketchbook still clutched in my hands. Sam, what's going on? I opened my mouth, but my throat was dry. The words stuck like sand. Ethan took a step toward her, his hands raised like he was trying to calm a storm. Emily, I need to be honest with you, he said, his voice steady but laced with pain. I've been feeling something for Sam, and I think he feels it too. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily's face froze, her eyes wide, like she was waiting for the punchline to a joke that never came. Then she laughed. A sharp, brittle sound that cut through me. You're kidding, right? This is some kind of prank. It's not a prank, I said, my voice barely audible. I forced myself to meet her gaze, hating the hurt I saw there, hating myself for causing it. I didn't mean for this to happen. I swear. Her laughter died, replaced by a look of betrayal that made my stomach twist. You, she said, her voice rising. My brother. You're telling me you're, what? In love with my boyfriend. She turned to Ethan, her eyes blazing. And you? You've been living in our house, acting like you care about me, while you what? Sneaking around with Sam. We haven't been sneaking, Ethan said, but it sounded weak, even to me. We've been trying to figure this out. I didn't want to hurt you, Emily. I still don't. Then why are you doing this? She shouted, tears spilling down her cheeks. Why are you standing here, telling me you're falling for my brother? She looked at me again, and the pain in her eyes was like a knife. Sam, how could you? I wanted to explain, to tell her I'd fought this, that I'd tried to be the brother she deserved. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stood there, the sketchbook heavy in my hands, my heart breaking under the weight of her hurt. Emily stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Ethan started after her, but I grabbed his arm. Let her go, I said, my voice shaking. She needs time. He turned to me, his face a mess of guilt and determination. We can't just let this fall apart, he said. We have to fix this. Together. But I wasn't sure there was anything left to fix. Emily was my family, my anchor, the one person who'd always been there. And now I'd betrayed her, all because I couldn't stop wanting something I wasn't supposed to have. The next few days were a nightmare. Emily stayed with a friend, ignoring my calls, my texts. The house felt empty without her, like the heart had been ripped out of it. Ethan tried to talk to me, to plan, to figure out what came next, but I kept him at arm's length. I couldn't think straight, couldn't see a way forward that didn't end in more pain. One night, I found myself at the cliffs again, the wind howling, the ocean churning below. I didn't draw this time, just sat there, letting the cold seep into my bones, trying to make sense of the mess I'd made. I thought about Ethan, about the way he'd looked at me, like I was someone worth seeing. I thought about Emily, about the years we'd spent leaning on each other, growing up in a town that didn't always understand us. And I thought about myself, about the person I'd been too afraid to be. When I got home, Ethan was waiting, sitting on the porch steps, his face lit by the moonlight. You can't keep doing this, he said, standing as I approached, running away, shutting me out. We're in this together. Sam. I don't know how to be in this, I said, my voice raw. I've spent my whole life hiding who I am, and now I'm losing her because of it. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. You're not losing her. She's hurt, but she loves you. And he hesitated, then took my hand, his grip warm and steady. I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you tell me to. I wanted to tell him to go, to make this easier, but I couldn't. Instead, I let him pull me into a hug, his arms wrapping around me like a lifeline. For the first time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be honest not just with him, but with myself. The hug lingered, Ethan's warmth seeping through the chill of the night. And for a moment, I let myself believe we could find a way through this. But the weight of Emily's absence pressed down on me, a constant reminder of the cost of my honesty. I pulled back, my hands lingering on his arms, torn between holding on and letting go. "We need to talk to her," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "She deserves the truth. All of it. But I don't know if she'll ever forgive me." Ethan nodded, his eyes serious. "She's your sister. She's hurt. But she's not gone forever. We just have to give her time and be honest, no matter how hard it is." The next morning, I sent Emily a text, begging her to meet me at the diner. To my surprise, she agreed. But her message was curt: "Fine. 2 p.m. Don't bring him." My stomach churned as I drove there, the familiar neon sign of the diner looming like a warning. When I walked in, she was already in a booth, her arms crossed, her face a mask of hurt and anger. "Sam," she said, her voice flat. "Start talking." I slid into the seat across from her, my hands twisting under the table. "I'm so sorry. Em," I started, my voice shaking. "I didn't want this to happen. I didn't plan it. But I've been hiding who I am for so long. And when Ethan came along, it broke something open in me." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't interrupt. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to keep going. "I'm gay, Emily. I've known for years. But I never told you because I was scared. Scared of what it meant. Scared of what people would think. Scared of losing you. And then Ethan, he saw me. Really saw me. And I couldn't keep pretending." She leaned back, her expression unreadable. "So you're telling me you're in love with my boyfriend?" she said, her voice low. "Dangerous. And you expect me to just be okay with that?" "No," I said, my eyes stinging. "I don't expect you to be okay. I just want you to understand. I've been fighting this my whole life. And I'm tired. Em. I'm tired of hiding." For a long moment, she just stared at me, her jaw tight, her eyes glistening. Then she stood, grabbing her bag. "I need to think," she said, and walked out, leaving me alone with the hum of the diner and the ache in my chest. I didn't see her for days after that. Ethan tried to be there, but I was drowning in guilt, second-guessing every choice. One night, he found me in my room, staring at a blank canvas. "You can't keep punishing yourself," he said, sitting beside me. "You were honest. That's more than most people ever do." "But I hurt her," I said, my voice breaking. "She's my sister, and I broke her trust." He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "You didn't break her. You let her see you. And that's not a bad thing. Sam. It's brave." His words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the pain. I leaned against him, letting his presence anchor me, even as I wondered if I'd ever get my sister back. A week later, Emily showed up at the house. I was in the kitchen, making coffee, when she walked in, her face pale but determined. We need to talk, she said, and my heart sank, expecting another fight. Okay, I said, setting the pot down. I'm listening. She sat at the table, her hands clasped tightly. I've been thinking a lot, she said, her voice steady but soft. About you. About Ethan. About everything. And I'm still mad. Sam. I'm mad that you didn't tell me sooner. That you let me find out like this. But I'm not mad that you're gay. I'm not mad that you're you. I blinked, tears burning my eyes. Let me finish, she said, holding up a hand. I love you. You're my brother. And that doesn't change. But Ethan, she paused, her voice catching. He's not mine anymore. Is he? I shook my head, the truth heavy between us. I didn't want to take him from you, I said. I couldn't stop feeling what I feel. She nodded, her eyes wet. I know. And I hate it. But I know. She stood, pulling me into a hug. And I clung to her, relief and guilt crashing together. We'll figure this out, she whispered. But it's going to take time. When she left, I felt lighter. But the weight wasn't gone. Ethan was waiting on the porch, his eyes searching mine. How'd it go? He asked, his voice cautious. She's not okay, I said. But she's still my sister. And she's trying. He smiled. Small but real. That's a start. Emily's hug lingered in my mind. A fragile bridge between us. But the road ahead was still uncertain. She'd said we'd figure it out. But the hurt in her eyes told me it wouldn't be easy. Ethan and I were caught in a strange limbo. Our feelings for each other undeniable, but tangled in the wreckage of what we'd done. The next few weeks were a delicate dance. Emily moved back into the house. But she kept her distance. Her smiles tight. Her conversations short. Ethan stayed, too, sleeping on the couch, insisting he wasn't giving up on either of us. I wanted to believe him. But every time I saw Emily flinch when he walked into a room, the guilt came roaring back. One afternoon, I found her in the backyard, tending to the garden she'd started last spring. The roses were wilting, neglected in the chaos of our lives. I knelt beside her, picking up a pair of shears. Need help? I asked, my voice tentative. She glanced at me, her hands buried in the soil. Sure, she said, and for a while, we worked in silence. The only sounds the snip of shears and the distant hum of the ocean. Finally, she spoke. I miss us, Sam. The way things used to be. Me too, I said, my throat tight. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, she said, her voice soft. But you did. And I'm trying to understand. But it's hard. I loved him. You know. The past tense hit me like a punch. Loved? I asked, my voice barely audible. She nodded, wiping dirt from her hands. I can't be with someone who's in love with someone else. Especially when that someone is you. She looked at me, her eyes clear despite the pain. But I don't want to lose you. Sam. You're my family. I reached for her hand, and she let me take it. Her fingers warm and calloused. I'm not going anywhere. I promised. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. That night, I found Ethan in the living room, staring at the TV without really watching. She talked to me. I said, sitting beside him, "She's letting you go." He nodded, his face unreadable. I figured she would. I just didn't think it'd hurt this much. He turned to me, his eyes searching. "What about us? Sam, where do we go from here?" I didn't have an answer. Not really. But I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. And for the first time, I let myself imagine a future where I wasn't hiding. "We figure it out," I said, "one step at a time." The days that followed were a slow unraveling of the tension that had gripped our house. Emily started smiling more, even joking with Ethan, though there was still a distance there. I stopped running from my feelings, letting myself lean into Ethan's presence, his touch, his quiet support. We didn't flaunt it, out of respect for Emily, but we didn't hide it either. A brush of hands in the kitchen, a shared laugh over coffee. It was small, but it was real. One evening, I took Ethan to the cliffs, the place where I'd always gone to escape. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. And we sat on the edge, our legs dangling over the drop. "This is where I come when I need to think," I said, handing him my sketchbook. "I want you to see it." He flipped through the pages, his fingers tracing the drawings of him, of us, of the life I'd been too afraid to dream of. "You're incredible, Sam," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to be part of this. Part of you." I kissed him then, slow and sure, the ocean roaring below us. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a promise. A step toward something honest, something true. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine, and I felt like I was finally home. But life wasn't a fairy tale. Emily was still healing, and I knew it would take time to rebuild what we'd lost. The town wasn't always kind. Either whispers followed us, glances that lingered too long. But with Ethan by my side, and Emily slowly finding her way back to me, I felt stronger, braver, like I could face whatever came next. The months that followed were a slow stitching together of our fractured lives. Emily and I found a new rhythm. Not the same as before, but something stronger, built on honesty instead of secrets. She started dating again. A quiet guy from her work who made her laugh in a way I hadn't seen in a while. And Ethan and Noelle. We were learning what it meant to be us. Out in the open. No longer hiding behind stolen moments. One crisp fall morning, I woke to find Ethan in the kitchen, making pancakes, the smell of butter and syrup filling the house. Emily was there too, setting the table, her smile easy for the first time in months. "You're burning those," she teased Ethan, nudging him with her elbow. He grinned, flipping a pancake with a flourish. "Just adding character," he shot back, and I laughed, feeling the warmth of this moment, this fragile piece we'd built. After breakfast, Emily pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, Sam," she said, her eyes soft. "For being you. It's not easy, especially here." I hugged her, my throat tight. "I couldn't have done it without you," I said, and I meant it. Her forgiveness, her love, had given me the courage to step into my truth. That afternoon, Ethan and I walked to the cliffs, our hands intertwined, the wind tugging at our jackets. The ocean stretched out before us, endless and wild, and I felt a sense of possibility I'd never known before. "What now?" I asked, leaning against him. "Now we live," he said, his voice steady. "Sure. We love. We fight. We figure it out. Together." I looked at him, at the man who'd turned my world upside down, who'd forced me to face myself, and I smiled. "Together," I echoed, and it felt like a vow. The town wasn't always kind. There were still whispers, still stares, but there were also allies, friends who stood by us, neighbors who surprised us with their support. I started showing my art at the community center. Portraits of Ethan, of Emily, of the life we were building. Each stroke was a declaration, a refusal to hide anymore. One evening, as winter settled over Coos Bay, we hosted a small gathering at the house. Emily's new boyfriend was there, along with a few friends from town. We laughed, shared stories, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged not just in the house, but in my own skin. As the night wound down, Ethan pulled me onto the porch, the stars bright above us. "I love you, Sam," he said, his voice quiet but fierce. I didn't know what I was looking for when I came here, but I found it. "I found you." I kissed him, my heart full, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Emily joined us, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and we stood there, the three of us, looking out at the night. We weren't perfect, but we were honest, and that was enough. The line Ethan had crossed that rainy night had changed everything. It had broken us, but it had also set us free to love, to hurt, to heal. And as I stood there, between my sister and the man I loved, I realized that some lines are worth crossing, if they lead you to the truth.